What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and as the ever-tolerant group of people would ever say, not everything's for you, not everything's for everyone, and I actually agree with that, except I apply it universally, whereas they apply it to anytime they get criticism, suddenly something's not for you. Now, there's this Pixar movie that definitely isn't for me. I mean, there is absolutely nothing about the trailer or whatever that would be for me. Perhaps if I had a daughter or something like that. It's a kids movie. It's a movie about a young girl who gets, her hormones are raging and she's a teenager or whatever. Not a movie I have any interest at all in seeing. But also, not a movie that I would probably do a review for, unless, of course, that was my job. Well, there was this tweet post this morning from Cinema Blend, and it made really no sense. I didn't understand it. They write, "We failed to properly edit this review, and it never should have gone up. Because, by the way, a man said that he didn't relate to a movie about a woman having her period or whatever." Like, I don't really think that's an uncontroversial take. Maybe it would have been better for him to just say, like, well, this movie's obviously not for me. It has a very pointed message. At least acknowledge that going into the review. But from what I read, he did. "We have unpublished it." I have the archive. "And assigned it to someone else. We have also added new levels of editorial oversight. Thank you to everyone who spoke up." If we look at the replies, these lunatics, like, want him drawn and quartered. Here we have Yolanda Machado, the digital editor at Entertainment Weekly and a critic for The Wrap, writes, "This was written by your managing director," in all caps, not some junior writer. "As an editor, there is no amount of editing that would have erased the racism." There wasn't any of that, by the way. "And what are you doing to make sure he is held accountable?" What does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? "And that this doesn't happen again. Parentheses, it's happened before. Source, dude, trust me. And your EIC needs to be aware that we're all watching and waiting to see what accountability will happen, including perhaps hiring a diverse and inclusive crew at fair wages. I have to wonder just how racist you all are if that's the managing director." What? And the guy that wrote the review, "I'm genuinely sorry for my turning red review. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with criticism, no matter how harsh. It is clear that I didn't engage nearly enough with the movie, nor did I explain my point of view at all well. I really appreciate your feedback." Translation: "I got dragged extensively when I published my very deeply held bad opinions. This tweet is damage control. My opinions are still the same, but I hope this will be enough to get me off the hook." Here's what the tweet said, though, that everyone lost their mind with: 809 quote tweets to 60 likes. "Some Pixar films are made for a universal audience. Turning Red is not. And I would argue that that is an uncontroversial opinion to have. The target audience for this feels very specific and very narrow. If you're in it, this might work well for you. I am not. This was exhausting." Like, so? You see, this was, why can't people just think of the possibility that maybe he's not an evil person and the movie just wasn't his cup of tea and that he's just being honest about it? Accusing people of ruining their life by trying to cancel them out of hate is the easiest thing, but is it right? Nor should he have to apologize, another comment writes. He's doing so for whatever reason, but there's really no need. There's like no need to apologize for this review. I don't understand. Turning Red is for everyone, Cass says. Review calls film about Chinese-Canadian girl unrelatable. I assume it would be unrelatable. It's a story about a young girl going through the change. okay? And then turning into a red panda every time, I don't know, as some like euphemism or whatever for or period, I don't know. Again, the movie's not for me, obviously. That that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of movies that, I wasn't the intended audience, but you can still enjoy them. But like, is this what these weirdos are that obsessed with? A review posted to the website Cinema Blend of Disney Pictures' new animated film Turning Red was pulled Tuesday after some readers lambasted it for ignoring the cultural experience of the creator. Literally, what? Dude just said he didn't like the movie because he couldn't relate to it. Turning Red review ripped for dismissing it as unrelatable. It is unrelatable for men. White film critic says Turning Red not for him, and people have thoughts. What does it matter that he's white, by the way? A white guy just called the Toronto-based Pixar film Turning Red exhausting in a review, and he's getting absolutely roasted for it. Why? He's not allowed to dislike the film? Like, legitimately. Here's some of his most heinous quotes. The target audience for this feels specific. God, this is terrible criticism. Writing about art requires empathy. This wasn't made for me is a starting point, not the point. I have been asked to relate to so many orphan boys in my life. How did I, a girl with living parents, ever manage? Okay, a fair point to make, but are we really losing our mind? The reason I love Monsters, Inc. is clear. I'm a monster who works in a monster factory. Again, is it like are their points correct? Probably, but they're not coming from a place of like where they're actually trying to, they're just screeching and reeing because some man didn't like a woman of a film. And by the way, he didn't give it 0 stars. Here's the evil review. I am not this film's target audience. Okay. The Domi She's Turning Red 13-year-old Malian Lee tries her best to balance schoolwork and overprotective mother and her social life and the raging hormones that have her drawing spicy cartoons of convenience store clerk on which she has a crush. She runs into expected gamut of teenage issues. She's obsessed with bubblegum boy band called Four Town, but her mom won't let her see them in concert. She's a closet artist, even though her mom pegged her for a more serious career path, and she's flowering into womanhood, which in her family comes with its own set of problems. Yes, Turning Red embraces the awkwardness of a teenage girl experiencing the onset of the change. Something unexpected in a Pixar film, though welcome for its seemingly honest portrayal. Okay, a compliment. Her mother, for example, stands outside her daughter's high school class in one sequence and screams because she believes her daughter has forgotten to bring pads with her. No doubt female audiences watching will cringe and chuckle along. I mean, what's wrong with that? Like, again, Turning Red has a frantic energy and manic pace that wears you out after a few minutes. Again, the protagonist, a hormone-soaked teenager who is desperately trying to quell every emotional fit as to prevent herself from turning into an actual panda. So by design, Turning Red needs to ramp up its nervous system and plug directly into the mindset of a young woman. It's a lot. It demands Turning Red ramp it up to 11 and stay there. It wore me out. None of these criticisms have anything to do with race. Like, people are calling this dude a racist because he's white and he didn't like a movie. That's the long and short of it. When Turning Red tries to lose itself in her creative process, celebrating her drawings and exploding with visual flares inspired by her work, it just reminded me of a far superior The Mitchells versus the Machines, another film that focused on a female character experiencing major life change, but one that also remembered that a broader audience will be checking out the film, so it bothered to include plot elements everyone could find engaging. As someone who appreciates the guilty pleasure joy of a good boy band track, these elements in Turning Red are never as amusing as the movie wants them to be. But the thematic split that tears Turning Red to shreds is the mystical red panda bit, which is radically different from the grounded teenage girl faces fear of growing up and often makes Domi Shi's movie feel like two stories working in opposition of each other. There's an audience out there for Turning Red, and when that audience finds the movie, I've got no doubt they'll celebrate it for its unique animal that it is. In my opinion, however, that audience is relatively small, and I'm not part of it. There's literally nothing wrong with this. Like, man dares to give middle of the road movie review, and internet loses their absolute ever loving minds. Like, that's the headline here. Now, granted, have I memed on some out of touch Batman reviews and things like that? Yeah. But I would never advocate like going after the person who wrote it and demand they get fired. Look, people review movies and they also have a job to get clicks. So perhaps I'm just missing it. I don't understand why anyone's mad about what this guy had to say at all, other than the fact that he's a white man that didn't like a movie about an Asian teen growing up, which apparently the only reason he could possibly dislike this film is because he's racist. Movies don't need this level of cringe defense. They really don't. And that goes for movies that I've defended in the past too. Like, this is absolute lunacy. The movie's not for me. Maybe for one of my viewers who wants to take their kids or whatever, and that's fine. But this review is far less offensive than that one that called it unapologetically horny. Nobody had a weird problem with that. But this is the world we live in, where one side of the aisle is obsessed with objectifying young kids and spicifying them, we'll say. But that's a topic for a different video. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll talk to you again real soon.